Are you ready? Stand by.
Welcome to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and this is not one of our normal interview episodes. I was actually a guest on the Firearms Radio Network podcast called the AR-15 podcast. And I talked to a couple guys, JD and Reed, and they've never shot any competition. They've never shot a three-gun match, and they're real big AR-15 enthusiasts. And they had a ton of questions about the game. So this is kind of a cool podcast that you'll get to listen to and see what goes on in the minds of newer shooters. So if you're a newer shooter yourself, you'll find out you're not alone. There's all kinds of great mysteries in three-gun here that turn out not to be really a big deal. They're not really a big barrier to entry. So we flatten those curves here, and we're going to help you get through this. Couple other things I've got going in the Three Gun Show world. It's been a pretty exciting January so far already. So the studio is a mess right now. It's almost completely done getting outfitted and built. Backdrops have come in, so you're going to be seeing videos coming out from the Three Gun Show pretty soon here. And we're gearing up for SHOT Show. SHOT Show, as I record this, is next week. And we've got a ton of great content planned for you. I'm going to be visiting a lot of our partners and vendors out there, and I'm also working on some other cool stuff coming down the road that I can't quite talk about now, but trust me, it's going to be exciting. And what else? Intro to Three Gun class. I'm going to be holding my very first Intro to Three Gun class February 8th, and that is going to be held here in Lakewood, Colorado. And it's at the Three Gun Show World Headquarters. There's no live fire portion of it at all. But after recording this podcast with JD and Reed, I realized the knowledge that I've learned over the last couple of years, shooting a ton of matches and doing this podcast, talking to the best people in the sport, that can be shared face to face too. I love going to club matches and meeting people and things like that. And it seems like there's a big hurdle for people to get from learning about three gun to get to a match. So I'm trying to flatten that out this year and help people get to their first match. So if you're interested and you're in the Colorado area, the Denver area, Lakewood, Colorado, February 8th, you can sign up on Practice Score. Just go to Practice Score and search for Three Gun Show. And we'll also have a link in the show notes at threegunshow.com. And if that's something you're interested in, come join me and we'll have a good time. So that's about all I got right now. I'm going to have another podcast for you next week during SHOT Show. And after SHOT Show, we're going to have a ton of great content, new products, new personalities, old personalities, all our great friends that we know and love from the show, from the shooting world. We're going to chat with them all at SHOT Show. So thank you for listening to this one. Enjoy it. Let me know what you think. If you like this type of stuff, subscribe over at the AR-15 podcast. And let those guys know that you heard about it on the Three Gun Show.
Welcome to the AR-15 podcast. AR-15 podcast. This is the podcast about your favorite black rifle. This show is for you if you're building your first AR or you've been building ARs for years. There is something we can all do to take our black rifle to the next level.
Hey guys, want to give you a heads up on what's going on with the show. We are excited to share with you that we are launching a new website. It's AR-15podcast.com. That's AR-15podcast.com. We will have all the latest news for the show up there, and also latest news about our next giveaway. We'll get to that in just a second. Also, you can support the show there. We've set up a new Patreon where you can support monthly. You can also support through a PayPal gift, which is just a one-time support for the show. So if you appreciate the hard work and the effort and the things that we do to bring you this show every week, we would appreciate your support. All the support goes back into the show. Nothing comes to the hosts or to Anthony. We will reinvest everything back into the show. Check that out, the Patreon link and the PayPal PayPal link are there on the page under donate. Now to the giveaway. We have teamed up with New Frontier Armory, my gun shop here in Vegas. You can visit them at newfrontierarmory.com. We are giving away to one lucky AR-15 podcast listener a C45 side charging pistol. It's got the New Frontier Armory logo on one side and the new AR-15 podcast logo on the other. Check it out at our website, ar-15podcast.com. That is the only place you'll be able to sign up for it, and one of you guys is going to take it home. We appreciate you guys listening to the show. Check out the new website. If you can support, that would be great. We have big plans for the show and things we'd like to do, and 100% of what you support the show with will be dumped right back into the podcast. Once again, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening, and check out ar-15podcast.com.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the AR-15 podcast. On tonight's episode, we have Dave Hartman from the 3-Gun Show and our usual co-host, JD. And we have also joining us, Cap. Mike, how are you doing today?
Hi there. Anytime I can be on the AR-15 podcast, it's a great day.
All right, Dave. Since you're the new guy here, but obviously you're well known amongst many of the guys here on the show. Why don't you give our listeners a background on you?
All right. Well, I am Dave Hartman. I'm the host and I guess creator of the 3-Gun Show podcast, and it's a weekly podcast. It's been going for about 180 some episodes now. So since 2015. And last year in May of 2016, I decided to go full time. So I quit my corporate job, and I bought a travel trailer, and I loaded my dog up in the truck, and we spent the entire last 2 years cruising around the country and shooting 3-gun matches. And now I'm back in Colorado, which is my home state, and set up in this office here, and we're going to talk some 3-gun and some 3-gun rifles, which are a little bit different than normal AR-15s.
All right. Well, so why don't we just break it down and have you tell us what 3-gun is all about?
All right. Well, so 3-gun is about the most fun you can have in action shooting, and everything still be legal and above the board, and not spend any time in the clink. But 3-gun is an action shooting sport. Consists of a rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun. That rifle is generally an AR-15. That shotgun is generally a semi-automatic 12 gauge, and that pistol is generally a double stack 9mm. And we shoot paper targets, steel targets, and clay targets, and we do it for time.
So, is 3-gun as a sport matured to the point where there is like a unified governing body, a sanctioned body that puts on matches?
Yes and no. So it's got to be like what, the 1960s, right, for football, where they had the AFC, NFC, or AFL, or NFL, whatever the hell it was. Probably should have gone with a metaphor that I knew a lot about. But there's actually several sanctioning bodies. We have 3-Gun Nation, UML, USPSA, and as well as homegrown outlaw matches. And I believe they're called outlaw just because they don't have like a specific sanctioning body. So the answer is there's several sanctioning bodies.
So if you were
it's kind of regional.
If you were to look at that compared to some of the pistol sports and shotgun sports, is that unusual? I mean, isn't there like usually an overarching body that seems to pull all the adherents together, kind of get them all?
So we were talking about it before we started recording here. NHRA, right? They're the National Hot Rod Association, is the drag racing sanctioning body, right?
Right.
But that started 67, 70 years ago, something like that. So it's been a long time process, right? So 3-gun has been around since the 80s.
Right.
And a lot of it's homegrown. So basically it becomes like, who wants to be responsible for this? And then all over the country, it's kind of regional. And as you know, the firearms industry is always at least 10 years behind the curve as far as technology goes. So they used to have to mail each other letters and shit. So it wasn't really great for getting people on the same page. But in recent times, in the last few years, 3-Gun Nation came around. They tried to get everything under the same halo. There was a lot of pushback of that from like the outlaw matches. Now it looks like Three Gun Nation might not be around for 2018, or maybe they will. Who knows? We're kind of waiting and seeing. In the last couple of years here, UML came up, but the multiple sanctioning bodies, I kind of look at them as like different flavors of matches. So if you like, Rocky Road, you can go somewhere and shoot a Rocky Road match, or there's a mint chocolate chip match, there's a vanilla match, that sort of thing. But when you look at like the pistol sports, you still have IPSC, you have USPSA, you have IDPA, and those are very, very different matches. Like you can be, a proficient pistol shooter in IDPA and go suck ass at USPSA, and same thing with USPSA. You can go to like an IPSC match and just get torn up.
But isn't there enough difference in those in those bodies in terms of what the actual purpose of the sport is for there to be enough to distinguish them from each other? Or is that not the case?
Well, I guess in IDPA, yeah. But if you look at like IPSC, IPSC versus USPSA, right?
Yeah.
So IPSC came out of USPSA or vice versa back in, it started here in the U.S. and now it's an international sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they diverged in paths. So they're like completely different sports now.
Well, and I guess, my curiosity is Three Gun going to go that route where you could say that you have multiple sports that essentially use three guns, but each one is distinguishable enough from the other where you're not basically, cannibalizing your shooters or your viewership or you know what I'm saying? Or is it going to be like Canadian football versus American football? And one of them is just this, we wish you'd die and go away kind of thing.
Well, that's a very good point. That's very good. Very, very good. So the basic thing of it, why there are so many different rule sets, so many different sanctioning bodies and matches run different, is they're put on by individuals, and this is a passion sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't go and put on a three-gun match and put 50,000 butts in seats like you can for, a football game or a basketball game or whatever. There's not that sort of spectator aspect of it. So the people that are doing this are doing it because they're passionate about shooting, they're passionate about practical shooting. So I think there are some matches that kind of follow the model of what you're talking about as far as USPSA versus IDPA type thing, like IDPA's defensive with air quotes, and then USPSA is like a race, right? So there are definitely different matches that way where if you try to be a quote unquote gamer when you go to some matches, you kind of get knocked back for that or penalized or whatever. But there's other matches that you go to and they're like, look, this is a sport. We're playing a sport. We're not training for Doomsday or the Russian invasion like we thought was going to happen with Red Dawn. But we're here to have fun, right? So, and that's the way I like to look at it. Like I feel like me personally, I'd be, better at shooting one of these rifles back here than a lot of people. But I'm not training to shoot people. I'm training to shoot targets, and that's what I like.
So, if you were going to talk today, who are the big dogs in three gun in terms of governing bodies? I mean, have we got it whittled down, or is it still the Wild West out there?
Well, so there's the Wild West. I would say probably, it doesn't even matter the ratio, but there's a lot of Wild West when it comes to matches. Like some of the big matches, the older matches like Blue Ridge Mountain 3-gun, Rocky Mountain 3-gun, those are considered, Superstition, for example, those are considered outlaw matches because they run on their own rule set, right? And, a lot of that stuff comes from like, this range over here, it's not okay to do that. This range over here, it's okay to do that. But then there's like USPSA runs USPSA sanctioned matches. Three Gun Nation runs Three Gun Nation matches. UML, United Multi-Gun League, is something that's kind of taken off this year, and it looks like it's going to be even bigger next year. So they're kind of come to the forefront too, but they all have different flavors about them. So they're all different matches when you go to them. So yeah, there are sanctioning bodies that are coming around and proven to be the top dog. There's like 3 of them.
But it's still the Wild West then? I mean, there's – well, and I guess what I'm coming at is this.
I understand where you're getting at with that question.
Well, I mean, it's like the NFL, right? If you're going to play football in the U.S., it's the NFL.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, there's like a specific rule set, right?
And if you're going to train someone to play football, they're going to come up through a system that's ultimately geared towards them going that direction.
Right.
You know, it's not like someone says, oh, well, you know, you're in a second tier school and we only teach people to play Canadian football. So, yeah.
But there are college football rules that are different than NFL, right?
Well,
That's true.
And I would think so. But I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm curious about is how do I get into 3-gun if I'm sitting here in a major metropolitan area and I want to find someone who's putting on matches?
Dude, that's a great question. That's a great place to start. So that one is actually a lot easier to answer. And what is your major metropolitan area, if you don't mind me asking?
It's Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Oh, you're kidding.
Nope.
Jesus, I can introduce you like 13 people that'll take you to a match tomorrow. So so that's a cool thing. Good for you to be in Texas because there's a ton of great three-gun matches in Texas. If you're looking at shooting something in your local area, you kind of figure out, like, where's the range? Does this range have a 3-gun match? If so, what rules do they play under? And then you kind of adapt to those rules. Mm-hmm. Now, once you start shooting like bigger matches where you're traveling to, like, say, Colorado and you're coming to shoot in our state championship, or you're going to Las Vegas and you're shooting USPSA multi-gun nationals, that's where things get to be like a little tricky and you have to read each of those rules. So for you, right outside of Fort Worth is Crescent, right? And there's a range there called Triple C Range. Mm-hmm. And Jeremy Moore from Shooter Source runs a match there called North Texas Multi-Gun.
Okay. And
they run outlaw rules, but they have their rules posted on their website. So you can sign up, shoot one of their matches, make sure you abide by their rules, go out there and shoot with, you know, some of the great shooters. And you're going to be shooting at your local matches out to 500 yards. We're here in Colorado, we shoot mostly bay matches, and we're shooting out to like 200 yards max in a match.
So if I was going to get into 3-gun and I begin going to my local range that puts on the 3-gun matches, and let's say for, you know, giggles and grins that I'm good enough to actually be competitive on a national stage, do I... Am I hamstrung because I've started with somebody that might not be part of 3-gun or UML, or, you know, or is it kind of an open family? You know, come one, come all. It doesn't matter if you started here, if you started there. We just want people to come out and shoot in our matches and have a good time. I mean, where is the sport as it stands today?
Okay, so those are like two entirely different questions. But the first one, yeah, you can go shoot any match you want. You know, if you pay your match fee and you go and shoot, you just have to know the rules. So you don't do anything that is outside of the rule set. And it's usually small stuff. Like, for example, there's, you know, USPSA, you can leave the shooting area and come back in, right? 3-Gun Nation, you can't leave the shooting area and come back in. You have to stay within the shooting area, right? So it's real small stuff like that.
Oh, overall, now you tell me.
Yeah, ask me how I know that one, Mike. But those are small things, right? But the equipment is generally the same if you stay in one of the three major categories or major like equipment categories. You know, dumping your shotgun in a barrel, picking your shotgun or your shotgun up out of a barrel. That's going to be very similar everywhere you go. So it's not like you know, one place is playing football with like an oblong shaped ball and everyone else is playing with a spear. You know, it's not that different.
Okay.
So would you say that it's basically be related to let's change it to baseball instead of football? One set of rules, you know, is playing with 9 guys the pitcher bats. The other league plays with a designated hitter that bats for the pitcher. It's pretty close. There's just a little difference is what I'm getting from it.
Yeah, the differences are very small. The biggest difference that I've run into, like if you can see where my finger's pointing here, this is my shotgun. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And it has a 12-round capacity magazine tube, right? So that fits into tactical optics, which is what I shoot, which is like a scoped rifle division, right? There is a match, Blue Ridge Mountain 3-Gun, where they don't let you have 12-round capacity. It's 8 rounds only. So I have to put a plug in this thing. That's the type of different rule set we're talking about.
It sounds pretty. It's just the nuances of those things. If I'm a radio. You go to different stations, they do different things. You got to follow different rules for nonprofits and commercial stations.
Right.
But from what I've gathered, just looking at like the 3-gun community as a whole, from visiting your guys' page, from looking at other places, if you show up to a match and you're new, there's pretty much, I'm seeing the kind of the camaraderie that's there with shooters, that people are going to guide you and show you, hey, this is how it's done. There's no dumb questions when it comes to it. Am I right?
Yeah, and as long as you're like primary number one, as long as you're safe, then you will get through it, and people will help you through it. Safety is number one, resetting is number two, and then shooting is number three, right? And then winning is so far down the list that you shouldn't even worry about that when you go to your first match. So, yeah, that's exactly it. Like, we've had people show up to matches and they bring like a rifle and a pump shotgun, but they don't have a pistol. Well, we're going to help you get through that, because that's the type of people that shoot 3-gun. Just watch. If you show up to a match like with a pump shotgun, and you're going to have 13 people offering you their semi-automatic shotgun to help you out. Like, hey, well, you'd be more comfortable shooting this. This is going to help you out. And people will actually fight over loaning you gear. So, yeah, that's the type of people that shoot 3-gun.
So I could show up with a high point pistol.
Don't even let him start with that crap.
Unless you show up with like an AR chambered in 357 SIG, I think you're going to be pretty well accepted, Reed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well,
there's even a category for iron sights.
Yeah.
Well, you see, there you go. Yeah. I guess the question I have is so if you're branching out from your local, other than some competition that might be invitation only, as long as you pay your fee and show up, you can go anywhere? Or, is there a qualification requirement for any of these organizations?
No, safety is the number one qualification, right? So if you demonstrate good safe gun handling skills, you don't break the 180-degree barrier around the range, you don't have a negligent discharge, then yeah, you're welcome everywhere. The only barrier to any of these matches is time and effort, right? So did you practice enough to be able to hit that 500-yard target? Did you pay your match fee? Can you get the time off from work? Those are the type of considerations. And did you sign up early enough to where you actually got in the match? Because some of these things sell out in mere minutes.
Do you see it growing as a sport? Have you seen it grow throughout the years, or are you at a spot where you think it's plateaued, or is it just continuing to go up?
So I've shot since 2011. I've shot 3-gun. It was the very first shooting sport that I tried, and it's what I stuck with. I really liked it. I've seen it grow from there for sure. When 3-Gun Nation was on television and they were doing their pro series where they went and had actual matches and everything, that I think was like one of the biggest growth phases of 3-Gun, because people saw that on television. They saw what you can do with guns. Like, I want to do that, and now with social media, you see people sharing match videos and everything. And that's what got me excited about 3-Gun, was seeing match videos and thinking like, well, I can't do that at my local range. Like, there's not a situation where I'm going to go and put on like body armor, shoot in a in a car, in a shoot house, jump into the back of a truck, shoot from that thing, climb up and down berms, use ladders and slack lines. Like, that's the type of stuff you can't do at your local range. Or if you did, it would take you like 12 hours to set that up, and then you'd shoot for 10 minutes and you'd be done, and you'd have to go tear it down, right? So that is the appeal for me, is to go play in someone else's jungle gym and stuff that they set up. And then here's the tricky part. If you pay for the match, you don't have to actually tear it down either. So you get all the party and you don't have to stay to clean up.
Man.
So that's what it is for me. And as far as growth, I do see like massive interest in growth in pistol caliber carbine divisions in 3-Gun. And, as Mike knows, it's become kind of a contentious sort of thing. And that will probably turn into its own sport for better purposes, right? But in like United Multi-Gun League, they have divisions where it's called a 2x4. You have 4 guns, you have your PCC, you have your rifle, you have your pistol, you have your shotgun, and then you get to choose 2 of them for each of the stage. And so it's kind of like golf in that manner, although trickier to travel with a 50-pound weight limit. But yeah. So I hope it keeps growing. I do see a lot of potential, especially in the ammunition-rich environment that we are currently in. Where when I started, it was just a few months before Sandy Hook, and all of a sudden you couldn't get ammunition. I remember, the 2013 Noveski Multi-Gun Championship? Free Munitions actually had a trailer that they towed down from Idaho with them with ammunition in it, because there were, more than half the match was going to drop out because they didn't have ammunition to shoot the match.
So you mentioned something, and I think it's probably worthwhile touching on it. So you mentioned the different classes. Can you kind of paint a thumbnail sketch of the different classes you might see in terms of your setup?
Sure. Basically, what you're going to find is like a limited division, a tactical optics division, an open division, and like a heavy division. And those can run by different names, and it depends on the match, what they call them and what they do, right? So this is like what a limited division gun would be, right? There's not really a whole lot of restrictions. There's a 1X scope on it. This is a Vortex Spitfire AR that has like the bullet drop turret, but it is an etched reticle and it's 1X, right? So that's kind of like your red dot division. Tactical optic is next from there. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, do you have something to say?
Yeah, that's also for Reed, since he wants to get involved, that's also the division you shoot iron sights in.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and actually when I started shooting 3-gun, I started with iron sights as well, and I probably shot like 4 club matches with that, and then switched to a red dot. So tactical optics, variable power scope. This is a Vortex Viper PST 1-6. So the close targets, obviously you're looking at 1X, and then the far targets you're looking at 6X. So then open, you can have the same rifle, same sort of thing, but then generally you'll see like an offset red dot sight, like right here, right? I don't actually shoot open, so I don't have an open rifle with me, but and then heavy 308, right? So that is basically the differences. Now I can shoot limited or tac ops with the same shotgun, 12-round capacity. If I'm shooting 3-gun nation, it's limited to an 8-round capacity. Pistol, generally the same. You're looking at USPSA limited rules, so double stack 9mm. You can have cocking serrations and relief cuts and stippling jobs on your plastic pistols and things like that. And then again, if you're shooting 3-gun nation, those are limited to 15-round magazines. And then the rifles are limited to 30-round magazines. But in most other matches, there's not really restrictions on rifle or pistol capacity.
So how much of your consideration in your tools is, I guess, maximizing the tool for the rules? I mean, you talk about a 15-round capacity magazine for pistol, right? So I shoot 357 SIG. Most of mine are 12-round magazines. So does a competitor walk in there and say, well, I'm not going to shoot what I like to shoot. I'm going to shoot what gives me the advantage. So I have fewer mag changes if I'm shooting 15 than if I'm shooting 12, right?
Well, first of all, this is a big day for me because I actually met someone who owns a 357 SIG pistol and shoots it.
It's like Santa Claus. They do exist.
All right. We just need to take a moment here, and for nostalgia, just the one guest that'll give Reed crap about the 357 SIG. Everybody who's played into this, he has an actual barrel being made for an AR in it, and I just want to take this moment. This is like my Christmas present right now. I'm just going to bask in the glory of this moment for a second. And
for just a moment, I offered to actually consider getting JD a wage for the effort he puts into it, and I'm thinking I'm going to just back off of those thoughts right now and go a different route.
He was going to triple my pay, but when you start multiplying the zeros by 3, it just doesn't work.
I told JD that I was going to actually start thinking about paying him in real money.
Pesos. That's not real money.
No, that's real money. In Mexico?
I'll be able to get him over the wall soon.
Start
All right,
small.
sorry to interrupt.
Baby
'Cause
steps.
That was an epic moment in our podcast history that will go down forever.
Now, wait a minute. I've already got my pistol caliber SBR in 357 SIG that works just fine, mind you. So I'm happy with where I've already started out and my array of 357 SIG chambered pistols, including my daily carry. So
I'm happy you're happy. And
Hey Dave, we're losing the audio quality on your end real quick. Test for me?
test, here we go.
Yeah, it sounds like Satan has indwelled your microphone.
Oh, really?
yeah.
Yeah, it's Mr. Roboto there.
That sound okay in my ears.
No,
Am I the only one hearing it? or
no,
somebody else?
I hear it.
No, I'm hearing it too.
You might have to unplug
Dave.
and replug it.
Yeah, Dave, can you reconnect for me real quick? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Now a word from our sponsor.
Now, I'm pretty sure, JD, you paid him for that, didn't you?
For the 357 SIG? No, but I would have.
Oh, there it is. Hang on. I'll be right back.
All right.
So I picked up my SIG from the RX from New Frontier.
Yeah.
They showed me this. Ivan showed me this 9mm SBR they're working on. It's got, I think, a 4-inch barrel, like 2-inch little rail on it. It's their side charger, and it's got a Battle Arms PDW stock on it. I literally like that big
Jeez.
collapsed. I was like, yes, I want one, and let's start the process right now.
Is that the SIG MPX or is that New Frontier's proprietary one?
That's
a
New Frontier's proprietary one.
Oh, cool. I'll have to see that next month.
Hey, Dave, give it a
Dude,
try.
it's like-
How about now?
Yeah, you're
sounds
good.
great.
Can you hear me now? How we doing? All right, good.
Yes.
All right. So we've got
So,
Dave back after that. And, Dave, that's what happens. The internet gremlins get you for trying to gang up on the host.
Well, so I came back in. You guys were talking about the MPX. Does SIG make the MPX in 357 SIG?
They've thought about it. They don't have a...
They have to.
So
They
so
thought
not
about
even
it,
SIG.
and then they thought better.
No, they didn't think better. They just had... I think they got sideswiped by their pistol woes of late. So as soon as that gets sorted out, I think they're going to get a caliber exchange set up.
So not even SIG is happy with their cartridge.
Yes, they are. They still make those pistols.
The good news, though, is when there is a panic, you will be the only guy of the four of us that will be able to buy ammo.
Yes.
Oh man, this is the greatest night of my life.
Yeah.
Well, what are we talking about again?
Well, we were talking about 3-gun and
Oh, yeah.
I forget, but
Yeah, JD had brought up a little miniature itty bitty PPC that New Frontier was making, and we knew that Reed was trying to find one in 357 SIG.
I got you.
I've already got mine in 357 SIG. I'm happy. I'm
waiting
just
for a
waiting.
heavy. I'm going to wait for a heavy. I need a heavy division for PCC so I can get a Chris
Yeah.
in 45.
I remember Reed's original question, right? It was the do you tune your gear to the division, or do you come out with what you have? Which is a great question. I get that one a lot. The answer to that one is if you're going to your first club batch, bring what you have. Like I started with a Gen 2 Glock 17, a pump shotgun, like a Mossberg 500 with an 18-inch barrel, and I think it had like a 6-round capacity. And then just the M4 style rifle that I built, which is actually this one here. So, it had a mil-spec trigger. It had a AT front sight post, like I said, a iron sight rear, and no compensator or anything. Full mass carrier, carbine length gas system, and I had fun shooting that for years. Right? There's so much more that needs to be tuned on yourself rather than your gear, right? And I've upgraded along the way as gear has helped me back, right? But now to answer the second part of your question, yeah, all my gear is 3-gun specific. Like I have a Glock 34. I would never think of using it as a carry gun. I have extensions on my magazines that I can have 23 rounds in them. The Armalite rifle that I shoot now. Oh, this little guy. This compensator is entirely useless for anything but competition because it's so freaking noisy that you will not make any friends on the firing line. shooting it inside a car would be terrible.
Yeah, they are awesome.
Yeah, the gun's great, and there's like no recoil to it. But I'm always glad I'm standing behind the commentator and not to the side. So, and my shotgun over there. Yeah, I've shot trap and sporting clays with it. But it's a purpose built thing. But that shouldn't stop you from getting out and shooting your first match, though, because you can have fun with whatever you have in your gun cabinet.
So let me ask you this.
I like to be enabled. So tell me I need a Benelli M4. Oh. Tell me I need a new
M4 is wrong. Oh. Don't buy a Benelli M4. It's the wrong gun for the game. It's if you're getting a Benelli, it's an M2. Breda makes a B12i. This is a Stoeger.
Beretta 1301.
Beretta 1301. Yeah.
See, I'll just add them to the list and buy more. I mean, that's the way it works for me.
Yeah. If you want an M4, buy an M4 and then go, whoops, now I need an M2, which is totally okay.
So, Dave, in your experience, since you've started out with things you've built, or you've had things you've built, and you've obviously bought three-gun purpose-built firearms, do you think one approach is better than the other?
Man, that's a great question. So I like building stuff like we talked about before. Like I used to race cars and stuff. I love putting things together. So for me, it's a matter of like personal preference, right? So Armalite is the sponsor of the show, of the three gun show. This is an Armalite rifle I shot in 2017 here. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but I have no sort of attachment to it whatsoever because it came like this, right? Mm-hmm. So, but all these guns behind me here, I know every little piece that goes into it because I placed every roll pin and stuff like that. So for 2018, talking to Armalite, they're going to just send me a bag of parts, and I'm going to put it together myself because that's something that I like to do, So I would say it doesn't really matter. There's guys that I shoot with that they'll have like a malfunction. You're like, oh, when was the last time you replaced your extractor spring? And they're like, where's that? You're like, well, it's on your bolt carrier group. Like, which one's the bolt carrier group? It's like, Jesus, dude, how do you clean this thing? Clean it, So I mean, there's something for everyone out there, really. Like I love building rifles. Like I said, I built all these ones behind me. So it's all personal preference.
Here's, I guess, the thought there. I mean, our show, we talk to people about building their rifles. We encourage people to develop the skill set, the frame of mind that allows them to go in and create, put together, envision what they want. But, in the back of my mind, there's always this thought, is the factory-built rifle any better than what I can do?
Yeah.
And just like you, I every rifle I've built, I know what's in it. I know every single thing that's happened to it from, inception to, field testing it. But,
right.
I'm always curious, is there some magic in that factory-built rifle? I mean, and, really, you start looking at the price points of some manufacturers' rifles, and you got to think, well, it doesn't come with a French made, so it better be doing something special for me.
It's true.
Wrong podcast for you.
So, I'm always curious. Do you ever think when you're shooting your own rifles that is there a moment where you have a crisis of faith in your rifle?
A crisis of faith in my rifle. Man, that's a good question. So the short answer is no. And this is the only AR-15 I have that I didn't build. And I have, a lot of them I lost in a boating accident, right? That old story. But probably got a dozen AR-15s, right? And this is the only one that I haven't built. Like I said, it works fine every time. I don't have any sort of attachment to it or anything.
Right.
Man, that's a great question, dude. If building rifles is your thing and you want to know every piece, you absolutely should do it. The cool thing is with every piece on this rifle right here, like you can buy it from Armalite, and Mike knows, like the handguard you can buy, the compensator you can even buy the barrels and everything, and have them done there. But I have never had this particular rifle on a stage and thought there's something wrong with the rifle. every time I'm like, there's something wrong, it's always with me.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of confidence in it for sure.
Yeah. Is that the 13-inch?
Yeah, that is the 13.5 with the pin and welded comp, and makes for an overall 16-inch rifle. So this is like the shortest rifle I've ever shot, and it's a ton of fun too.
Yeah,
Never shot in competition.
Yeah, that's the one that I got in 2014 when Armalite first released them. And the first time I shot that was at the World Shooting Championship, and Armalite was one of the stage sponsors, and they had this quick little just shoot 5 targets. And I didn't check the trigger, and I'm used to a 2-stage, 4.5-pound trigger. And I went like full auto on the first target. I shot 3 rounds. I was like, those are amazing rifles, and I'll shoot mine out to 600 yards. That 13-inch barrel is amazing.
Yeah, this particular rifle right here, I've shot to 600 yards. I was skeptical of the shorter rifles, and that's actually why I'm shooting it this year, is to become unskeptical, and I think I've done that because I've hit targets in a decent wind at 500 and some amount of yards, and never once has it let me down. Plus, it's like fast as heck when you're doing manipulating around walls and everything. The only issue that I've had with it is when you have like a longer magazine and you're shooting from like a fake slanted rooftop, then you run into issues with getting the handguard enough on that roof peak to get a good stable position.
Right.
But there's ways around that as well, shorter magazines and such.
So when you talked about the number of ARs you have, I'm assuming that for the most part you put them together for your competition needs. Is your bag of firearms like a golf bag? Depending on what you're going to do, you're going to pull out this rifle for this competition, or are they basically the residuals as you've evolved your skill set, your skill level, your shooting styles? Kind of describe that. Do you have multiples, or do you?
So I shoot one rifle all season long, okay. And the reason I do that is because you're not trying to get used to anything or break any habits on the clock or anything. It becomes part of you, and you can actually feel your holds. Like, I mean, I know when you get in, like Mike can probably attest to, when you get into like long range shooting and ballistics and everything, there's a whole lot of math involved. I have a decent memory, but I'm terrible at math, so it becomes a feel thing for me. And that's why I shoot one rifle, so I don't have to go back and forth and reset that trigger in my brain. That said, like I built a rifle in like 2011. It's this one right here. And I kind of did some upgrades to it, just kind of like half parsing some 3-gun upgrades, like a Michelin comp and like a Geissele 3-gun trigger. And then eventually got a handguard for it, free float. And then from there, it's like, well, how much do I want to spend like upgrading that, or am I just going to build like a complete rifle from the ground up? And again, like we were talking about, select every sort of component and have it be exactly what I want. And that's what this one was. So this is my second 3-gun rifle, and I put every little component together on this one myself. So in that aspect, like I shot this for all of last year, the entire season, and I haven't touched it again this year. So
do you have to spend a pretty fair amount of time before the season starts to develop an understanding of how your rifle is going to handle for you to feel confident going into the season, or do you just throw caution to the wind and you just begin, and when you get there, you get there?
I'm probably a bad example because I do a lot more things by the seat of my pants than I actually should. I don't know if you heard me, but I quit my corporate job to do a podcast full time. So that shows you what kind of good decisions I make. But so there definitely is like a warm up to the season, and I've gone into a shooting season cold, where like I haven't picked up my guns to go to a first match, and I'm like a turtle on its back trying to figure out how to manage a stage. But if you have the ability to go out to the range, practice, get your dope, know your what's it called, ammunition velocity, and punch that into like a street lock and stuff. It'll get you part of the way there. You verify on paper, and then you go for it. But again, it depends on what your 3-gun seems like, right? So in Colorado, we don't need to do a whole lot because when you have a 50-yard zero, it's the same thing as a 200-yard zero within the wiggliness of your barrel and your optic and everything. So you don't really have to worry about that. Last year, I lived in Texas. I went to my first local match at the Cawthorn Cartridge Club. Dissident Arms puts on a 3-gun nation match every month, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we're not going to shoot very far this month. I know you came out here all the way from Austin, but sorry about that. We're not going to be shooting very far. So about 430 is going to be our longest target. But 430, holy crap! Like this is just a club match, And so that is like run of the mill for them. So it really depends on where you're at and what you guys have available for your club.
A question that is totally off topic, but as you're traveling around the country, challenges you faced, carrying your gear around the country. I mean, that'd be an interesting, unique problem to kind of handle, right?
So things are heavy. The things that I like to play with are very heavy, right? Lots of ammunition. You need lots of ammunition. This rifle is 10 pounds or so. And when you have 3 of them, that's 30 pounds. And then you start getting up to that cargo capacity of the trailer and how much your truck can haul and stuff like that. And so what a lot of people do is they'll buy, all their ammunition at the beginning of the year. So it's all from the same lot, right? And they know what it's going to be. So me, it's like, okay, well, where's a Cabela's that's close to the next match? So I can pick up my blaster ammo, right? So I know that for long range, I always shoot the same, but for close targets and everything, you're shooting just 55 grain ball ammunition. So as long as I have like my long range ammo and enough of that in a box, then I can pretty much pick up blaster ammo anywhere. So that's one consideration. The other is, for some reason, like, I drive the speed limit. I obey laws, but anytime I pass a police officer, I get a little bit of a pucker, right? And then I know that I'm doing everything legit, and I am not breaking any laws, but it always freaks me out when you're like, am I going to have that conversation of any firearms in the car? Like, in the car, we got a couple. The trailer, we got a whole lot more, that sort of thing. But as far as like logistics of packing it and everything, like I played a lot of Tetris when I was young, so I'm pretty good at that. And I've got some lockable truck boxes, like a truck vault type thing in my pickup, and that's where I store all my guns and ammo and everything.
So you tow a trailer. Is that a trailer you sleep in?
Yeah, it's a travel trailer. So there's a bed, a kitchen, bathroom, shower, stuff like that.
Do you have your basic gunsmithing tools? Do you have reloading equipment? Is it basically just a portable armory?
Yeah. I actually I tried to get away from that. So if you walk into my trailer at any moment in time, you probably wouldn't know that you wouldn't know what I do unless I was actually at a match, and then I just kind of leave that stuff all lying about, right? But with reloading, you can't have that jiggling as you're going down the road, so I don't reload. Gunsmithing tools, I have just basic hand tools and everything. And then I rely a lot on the
kindness of strangers.
Absolutely. The friendliness and the kindness of strangers. And, generally if I put out like a bat signal of, hey, I'm having this kind of problem, someone at the match can help me out. And, but I pay it forward, and I do the same thing for other people. Like I've loaned shotguns, guns, a bunch of ammo. I'm tripping.
I know.
Mike is
reliving the 60s on his Google Hangout speed.
I have no idea what the hell happened there.
But so what would you say is the biggest challenge to somebody looking to get in?
I was trying to get a picture up when you were talking about gear. I was trying to get a picture up with the first 3-gun match that I went to, which was the 3-Gun Nation 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had no idea what I was in for, because all I knew about 3-Gun Nation and why I wanted to go was I saw the Pro Series. And I'm like, all this Bay fast stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. And I show up, and there's a wonderful woman, Tanel
Chedester?
Yeah. And she says, oh no, that's drag racing. This is, and she explained to me what the format was, and I said, I got to do some rearranging here. And as it turns out, I was told by Craig Outson, who I met at the match, he goes, oh yeah, you picked the wrong match for your first one.
Yeah,
but
I would say
it was
that as well.
It was a ton of fun.
First match, I would go with a club match. If you got to pay more than $100, you might be getting into something you're not ready for. Most club matches are 25 to 35, $45, whatever it is, depending on the range and their range fees, and that's a much more low key environment. So I would say that the biggest challenge into getting into three gun is the biggest challenge in running marathon. It's the biggest challenge in drag racing. It's the biggest challenge in talking to a girl at the bar. It's just having the balls to go and do it. And the people will use gear excuses forever and never have the fun of actually going to a match. And it's a shame. I've got several people that know what I do, and they've been, picking my brain for years and years and years. What's the perfect compensator? It's like, doesn't effing matter. Like, pick one and go with it, or bring out your A2 flash hider and have a good time. Like, that's the key right there, is just getting to the match. That's the hugest hurdle. And if you get out there with your, like I said, your pump shotgun, God forbid you have a 357 SIG pistol, bring that too. And then, just whatever AR-15 you have, you're going to have a good time. Like, you're not going to finish at the top, but you shouldn't expect to finish at the top anyway, because it's your first match, right? And then if you get a fire burning in your belly and you're like, okay, well, I need to upgrade my gear. Well, pick the crappiest piece of gear you have and upgrade that first. So if you've got a pump shotgun, go buy that Breda B12i semi-auto and get a big tube for it. Now you've got 12 rounds of capacity, and that's going to be no longer your weakest link. Then, from there, get if your rifle's lacking, get an Armalite. If you're in limited division, but your range shoots out to 430 yards, and maybe on a regular basis, maybe you can't see that. Maybe you need to switch to TAC-Ops. So you pick up a Vortex Viper scope. It's that sort of thing of the low-hanging fruit. Upgrade as you go along, rather than waiting until you have the best gear out there. So
let me ask you a follow-on question. We talked about, what firearms to bring. So is there a suggested loadout to carry your pistol mags, your shotgun shells, your AR mags, or do you basically just come with a big dump pouch and, fill it?
So don't come with a dump pouch, but the basic thing you need is like a good holster that covers the trigger guard, right? You need mag pouches for at least one AR-15 magazine, unless you suck, and then you need two. And then pistol magazines, two will generally get you there because you got one gun, two on the belt. Sometimes you'll need more. And then shotgun shell carriers. My first time, though, I put all my shotgun shells, I put the keys in my shooting bag, and then I put all the shotgun shells in my pockets, and I loaded from there. And it sucked. It was slow, but worked fine. And then, upgraded to something where I can load 2 or load 4 at a time, and just, did the upgrades from there. You saw that picture of Mike? Like, he's got a bunch of bags. So, yeah, all your boxed ammo is in the bags. Empty magazines are in the bags. You stuff them before the stage, and you go for it.
So past that, what else do you take with you? I mean, that you would think of as, if not essential, very helpful.
It's a good question. So three gun is very, very gear intensive, right? It's not like you go to a pistol match, you go to like a USPSA match or shooting production, you bring your pistol and like 7 magazines and 5 magazine pouches, and you're good, right? And then 9mm for the match. But with three gun, you may need slugs. You're going to need 12 gauge shotgun shells. You're going to need 55 grain blaster ammo. You're going to need, long range ammo, 9mm, all the magazines, et cetera, et cetera. So I have all my stuff in like a rigid box, rigid being like a brand name of tools, right? And so I have like a contractor thing that's on wheels that, I wheel around. There's so much stuff involved that I actually put together like a match checklist And if you're interested in that and seeing what you need to bring, and then you can actually print it out and check it off as you load it in your bag before you go to a match, you can get it at 3gunshow.com/checklist. And it's pretty helpful there. It's just a PDF that you download. You want to bring snacks for the day so you don't get hangry. You don't lose your mind as far as like losing your stage plan and everything because, your blood sugar level drops. You want to bring plenty of water. There's generally not running water at a range, and you're going to dehydrate because you're standing out in the range all day. So amongst all that, I bring some spare parts. I'll bring different springs for ARs and, extra bolt carrier group and things like that. Cases for your guns, I guess. That's pretty much it. Like, there's no sort of, like special one thing that you bring that's going to... Actually, I take that back, an umbrella, because it rains at every damn 3-gun match I go to. No, that's kind of a joke. Like we for some reason the 3-gun community as a whole has their schedule backwards, right? So you'll be shooting in Texas in July, where it's hotter than Hades, and then you'll just be shooting in Minnesota in December. Like, what's going on, guys? Like, we need to swap these things here. But generally, like if you're shooting in Kentucky in the spring, or you're shooting Texas in the spring, or you're shooting Missouri in the summer, you're going to catch some rain. So you will quickly find that all these mil spec coatings they put on all these cute little doodads on your rifle, they suck, and they rust right through the mil spec coating. So aftermarket parts are awesome in that respect. But and being here in Colorado, like I would have never known that. Like, we don't have rust here. It's a rainy mess, like almost every major match you go to. But you got to be willing to suck it up and deal with the rain. So, extra socks and ponchos, umbrella. That's good stuff right there.
And so in Vegas, we bring an umbrella just to stay out of the sun.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. Yep. Yeah. Parasol, I think they call that.
Yeah.
So we've kind of covered the gear. We've covered the matches. Tell me about the community. I mean, you go out, I think we've all been to public ranges, and, there are any number of commonly bumped into sorts out there that many shooters just don't appreciate. But, tell me, who are you going to run into in a 3-gun match? Tell me about the community.
The community in 3-gun is pretty awesome. It's the reason that I chose this as like my sport, right? I've done a ton of other things. I've even shot, pistol matches and everything. But the people in 3-gun are so cool. They're freaking hilarious. Everybody's out to have a good time. There's probably like 20% of the field that are really taking it seriously, and then everyone else is out there just to have a good time and make some good memories and have some good stories, right? On your local match scene, you're going to find, some of the matches I've been to, it's like 50% law enforcement / first responder type thing, So there's a big contingent as far as that goes, which is cool because then they're, out there playing gun games and that's, useful practice that they're getting as well. You're going to find some of the most helpful people on the planet. Like I said, if you show up with, inadequate gear, you're going to get people to loan it to you. One of the things I will say is, like, on that belt gear topic earlier, so this is a Safari Land belt and it has ELS clips. So these things and like the pouches all come out and put back in. And a lot of people, I would say the vast majority of people have these ELS clips on their belt. So if you need to borrow an extra mag pouch or if you need to borrow shell carriers, you just clip it in, you run it for the stage, and then you give it back to the guy that you borrowed it from. Always remember to give it back, by the way. I made that mistake. Sorry, Mike. But,
the great thing, I use the silver Sharpies and put my initials or my name on everything. Because I actually went to a class, and one guy showed up. He left a 3-gun match. He had his belt with nothing on it.
Oh, wow.
And we all pitched in. And just like what Dave said, we all had the ELS. Say, here's a mag holder, here's a holster. So it's a great system.
Yeah, I do the same thing, mark all my stuff. my last name's Hartman, so I usually put a little heart and a little dude on there. Freaks a lot of people out. They're like, Hart, man? But then they don't want to steal it, so that's cool too.
So in terms of the competition, I mean, I don't know, I've been places where a little overbearing. I've been places where they're pretty cool. Are you going to find that the people who involve themselves are generally of the same caliber? Or, I mean, do you basically have to, just take it with a grain of salt if you get a bad, range officer, if you run into some local club staff that aren't excited about you being there? I mean, is that part of it? Yeah. I mean, it's just like everywhere you got to be careful because sometimes you're not going to like the guy you have to stand next to.
That's a great question. So I have a low tolerance for, and I spent 8 years working at Lockheed Martin, so I've had my fill pretty much. And I designed my life around avoiding people like that and spending the time with people that I enjoy. Right. So that's what I do. You will get to, if you travel to major matches and you travel to enough of them, you will see the exact same people all over the country again and again and again. So the best piece of advice I would give is, like Dalton says in Roadhouse, be nice, right? The very first thing that you want to do is create a good first impression for yourself, right? And you can only worry about you, right? So then if you run into like an a-hole RO, maybe you just take some time to clear your head. Like, this is just one stage. We're gonna figure it out here. I'm gonna get through this. If it's egregious, you can talk to a match director or a range master, and they can, readjust that RO's attitude. Because at the end of the day, you are a customer there. You paid several $100s and traveled, in some cases thousands of miles to go to this match. These are your entertainment dollars, and you should get a good product for those entertainment dollars, right? Now that's major matches. Like on a local level, it's much more us, right? Like everyone pitching in to put this match on. You show up early, you help set up the match, you stay late, you help tear down the match. Like that's what the local match, the club match scene is like, right? If you do have a problem with a certain person in that club match, don't squad with them next time. And that's pretty easy to do when you're talking like practice court. You just like figure, okay, these guys were cool, I'm going to go squad with them. And that's kind of the thing you worry about there. Also in club matches, local matches, as they're also known, you're generally self-ROing, right? So if you have a squad of 8 people, one of those people is going to run the timer, one of them is going to run the iPad for scoring, and then everyone else is going to reset while that after that person's done shooting, and then you kind of rotate around that, right? So you be a good steward, other people be good stewards, and again, you find a good set of people that you want to shoot with on a regular basis, and then you don't have to worry about the assholes or something. So I would say they're easy to avoid, but I have crossed matches off my list, match directors, match runners. But the good news is that it's like few and far between.
Right.
Speaking of, Dave, you might want to talk about the different scoring at the different matches, so you don't tick anybody off being in a hurry to paste a target if it's a points match.
Yeah. I mean, so that's a good point. Like in USPSA, you shoot all the targets, and then no one pastes anything until like the scorekeeper could see it, right? In 3-gun, we have so much to deal with multiple guns that you kind of hurry things along, and you generally paste after a person has shot that area. So as the person's progressing down the stage, everyone else is going behind and pasting targets and resetting steel and putting clays back on and stuff. But you want to find the culture of that match and say, what do you want me to do here? So if you're at a major match, you ask the RO. If you're at a local match, ask one of the more experienced guys or maybe the match director, how do you want me to reset?
So what else does a beginner need to know?
I'm sorry?
So what else does a beginner need to know?
Oh, so much.
Well, what's the difference between a points and time plus penalties?
So I don't know that I've ever shot like what you're getting at, Mike, as far as like a points match in 3-gun. Oh, I take that back. Like there's there's Horner scoring, right? And so Blue Ridge, they score the targets instead of just like one in the center and two anywhere is generally what you find in three gun. At Blue Ridge, they call Horner scoring because Andy Horner is the only guy in the country that will score targets like this. But they put out IDPA targets, and it's like, down 1, down 2, down 3. They add seconds to your time if you're out of the center zone, which I don't like that kind of scoring because I like to go really fast. And then when you have like a full-size IPSC target that you're just blazing behind, just squirt two rounds at it, it's kind of satisfying. But generally, you're going to find 1 in the center, 2 anywhere is going to neutralize that paper target. But you always want to read the rules of where you're going because there are definitely exceptions, and even some local matches will run like quasi USPSA where they score the A zone, the B zone, the C zone on both on both rifle and pistol. But it's very unique.
So that's basically match specific.
Yeah.
Are there shooters who basically select matches based on, I don't know, their skill levels or their preferences and just avoid everything else?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's in a lot of these major matches, there's prize tables, right? And there's people that, they can go and pull a top 10 finish and they want to pick the biggest prize table so they can get the best prize, right? But there's, guys like me that are going to finish mid-pack, and it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm not in it for the prizes. I've got a whole box full of crap over there useful crap, but it's stuff that, I don't currently have a use for yet, right? So for me, it's all about the experience. And so that's how I pick matches. And I like big, long stages with tons of shooting. So I pick matches that have big, long stages with tons of shooting. There are people that do really well in bay stages, right? In bay matches. So, you're at your traditional berms that are, 10 to 20 feet tall, 3 sides around, and they'll create like a scenario with walls and targets and stuff like that you have to move through pretty quick. There's people that's their strong suit, so that's what they shoot. There's people that are really good at jungle runs, what we call jungle runs, which is basically you're running through the forest and they hide targets behind trees and you have to, load your shotgun as you're moving and then shoot stuff as you're moving. And get down this path, there's like a defined start and a defined finish. Like that's some people's strong suit, so they go to those type of matches. Here in Colorado, we have to drive 2 hours to get to any range that has a 3-gun match. And they put them out on the Eastern Plains, and there's no trees. So Dave is terrible at jungle runs because we don't have any trees here to practice with. So I like doing the jungle runs because then I'm getting more reps and I'm getting better at that, but it's not currently a strong suit. But like I said, that's something you can't do here in Colorado. So if I'm going to go drop, $250 on a match fee plus, $700 to get there and all my time and the resources of the 3-gun show, I want to do something that I can't do everywhere.
So is that something that you think took you a while to arrive at, or is there enough out there about a given match that you could figure out that you might not like it? Like if you had to, run a mile and you're not a runner, you could say, no, I know enough now that I'm not going to sign up for this one.
That's a great question. So for me, it's kind of easy, right? Because I just get someone on the podcast and then I ask them questions like, hey, have you ever been in this match? What's it like? What should I expect? And so that's actually why I started the podcast, because I figured there's, these like 30, 40 dudes I see on 3-Gun Nation, and they're like the best 3-gunners in the world. I bet I could go take a class from each of them, and it would be several $1,000s to do that. But there's also probably like a whole lot of knowledge I can get from just talking to them. So that's why I started the podcast and tricked them into telling me all their secrets. But you're right. There is like a hole in the market for, what a specific match requires of you as far as skills. Like, is it long range intensive? Do I have to shoot stupid long slugs for no good reason? Am I going to have to run through the jungle? Do I need to know that type of stuff? How should I prepare for this match? What type of stuff should I pack with me? So I saw a hole in that market, and I started a match recon series this year. So every match that I've shot in 2017, and several that I haven't shot, but close friends of mine have shot, we've done like a recon sort of format on the podcast. We'll break down like, okay, this is where the match is. this is kind of, that the major metropolitan area nearby. This is what you can expect as far as like long rifle shots. This is the number of long rifle shots. This is those long slug targets. You're going to want to be sure to be in shape for this, not be in shape for this, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to say we've got like 15 different matches that we've done that for. So you can actually go listen to those match recon podcasts for a specific match and really get an idea of what to expect. Failing that, go to YouTube and search that match. And there's, most of the time you're going to find someone that has shot it and has footage of it. Because these major matches are generally in the same place at the same range. Mm-hmm. And they like to have similar sort of feel to their stages throughout the year. Or maybe they don't even like to do that, but they just do it because that's what human nature is.
So I think you touched on something that I don't think I had thought of. As a competitor, from couch potato to marathon runner, do you have to be at a given point on that spectrum to be comfortable and have fun, or it really runs the gamut?
It runs the gamut for sure. I shoot with a guy named Dan Troxel, who is actually the lead-in voice on my podcast. He does the Are You Ready, Stand By? And he's, I think now Dan is 64, I think. But, I ran a shotgun side match with Dan this summer. And, he and I, because of the side match, there's not a whole lot of resetters. So he and I reset that whole thing the entire weekend. And he kicked butt, but he's he doesn't go to, like, say, the big Rocky Mountain stages and things like that, because that's not his wheelhouse, So you can kind of tailor your match schedule to fit that sort of thing. And it's like everything in life, though. The more fit you are, the more fun you're going to have, for sure. When I started this, the three-gun show here, I kind of had to rearrange some priorities because I had a full-time job. So I put on probably like 25 pounds since I started the show, doing a lot of travel, just making poor food decisions. And I'm a lot slower than I was when, 2 years ago. So, but I'm still having fun, still having a great time. And there's not anything that I do that I think, this is not going to, end well. That's never some sort of thought in my head.
I'm not going to have a heart attack midway through the course.
The reality is that you've got, 300 seconds max on the clock. Most matches, there's 180 seconds max. And you're doing that over 10 stages over a few days. I tell you, the hardest part is standing all day long,
yes.
leaning over, picking up steels, picking up poppers. So basically you're standing for hours at a time, you're deadlifting, and then, now it's your turn to shoot. And you have to run your ass off. You have to get real steady positions to make long range. So that's the most difficult part for me, is on like day 3 of a 3-day match, I'm dehydrated and want to wake up instead of being, fresh as a daisy and ready to rock. I'm tired. And by the end of the third day, it's like, okay, let's dig deep here. But it's all mental, so you can get through whatever you can get through with the mental preparation. But it really comes down to, like I said, like everything in life, you're going to, the more fit you are, the more fun you're going to have and everything.
Yeah, Reed, the last local match I shot here, because we can't shoot rifle anymore, I had on my Fitbit, and I burned 11,000 calories in about 8 hours, and I ended up walking 7 miles. And that was just the time I was there at the match.
Jeez.
Yeah. I was talking to one of the ROs, DJ Petro, that did hard as hell. And so he RO'd the shotgun run. And I want to say that between him and his other fellow RO, Sky Killian, they did 60 miles over a 3-day match. It's like, that's 3 friggin' marathons.
Yes. That's why I always bring a stool. And if I fly somewhere during the obligatory Walmart stop, I buy shotgun shells, food, and a stool, and a $9 stool.
Yes. And the $9 stool is totally clutch. I mean, you can add that to the umbrella category there. The trick is to use that stool judiciously, because you don't want to be the dude sitting down on that stool when everyone's resetting. So sit when you can, and then when you're supposed to be out there resetting or preparing to shoot, then you want to be on it.
So for someone who's going to get into it, we've covered a lot of the basics. What are some of the internet resources you would point people to fill in the gaps, to help them do their own research and homework to get further into it? Are there like go-to resources that you found over the years that are really kind of the good places to go for that kind of information?
Honestly, no.
Well, wait a minute. What about your podcast? Are you saying that
it was like it was kind of a softball?
It totally was. That's the reason I started the podcast. Is I looked around and I'm like, I'm nuts about this sport, but the information out there sucked. And I wanted to dig deeper than just the post shoot breakdown of like, hey, what'd you think of that stage? And then you got like 10 seconds of NASCAR, my Armalite rifle ran really well, that sort of thing. So my podcast, we dig deep. We go like 60 to 90 minutes. We talk about like mental preparation, your mental game, managing a match in your head, the proper gear setup, funny stories from traveling, how to approach a stage, how to, shoot long range. And like I said, we dig deep on it. Like I don't have a time cap or anything. So as long as the guest and I are having a good exchange and we're still pumping out great information, we'll keep it going. So some of the podcasts we've done have ended up being like 2 hours long, but it's all good stuff, and it's cool to be able to be the guy that gets that information out there in the community. So threegunshow.com is what I would check out. iTunes has the 3-Gun Show in it. Stitcher's got it. Google Play, stuff like that. The other thing I would be remiss in saying is like Patrick Kelly. He's been a guest on the show. He was co-host of 3-Gun Nation for a couple of years. He has a bunch of great how-to videos on his YouTube channel. So definitely check Patrick out, and he's putting great stuff out all the time.
And so, Dave, the plan is to cross-release this across both platforms, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're listening to Reed and I, and you're usually here on the AR-15 podcast, you can check them out. Do them a solid. Subscribe to the 3-Gun Show. That is what it. I think that's what makes a difference when it comes to podcasting and reaching out to people. But
yes.
Also do the same if you're listening. We'd love to have you over at the AR-15 podcast. We make fun of each other a lot for our lower collections or my lower collection. My pathological problem of buying one firearm after the other. I mean, I'm literally the kid in the store that goes squirrel, and all of a sudden I have a new gun in my hands. Reed likes iron sights, 357 SIGs, and when I can get whiskey in him, he's quite entertaining on telling me what he really feels about everything in life.
Nice.
So, that's kind of us. That, and we talk to all the companies that I end up buying rifles from or buying parts from. So that's a little bit about us. But
I gotta say, I listened to one of your episodes with Mark from Vortex on there.
Yeah.
And so I've met Mark a few times, been by Vortex a few times. I love all the guys there. And he let out golly gee willikers, oh my gosh, holy cow, and something else is like, geez, he's dropping like all the Minnesota F-bombs in one podcast.
Oh yeah,
don't you know? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was great. I think he even said Jeepers at one point. I don't know, but I was cracking up. So I was hitting up his coworkers via text, and they're like, "Oh man, you gotta give Mark a hard time. It's hilarious."
Man, that was a good show. We enjoyed having Vortex on. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch companies like that grow and keep growing and exploding and doing good things with their customer service and how they treat people. So,
yeah. I got exposed to the dudes at Vortex pretty thoroughly this year, and like I said, I actually went to Middleton, Wisconsin, and visited their operation, and I was blown away by how many people they have, the scale, that they're working on, and the new facility that they're building is incredible too. So Vortex is one of those cool companies that's doing cool stuff like in the social media space, and they're doing great stuff for their customers as far as their VIP warranty and everything. But man, just the passion that runs through that place. You walk through and there's like more guns than in my office here. It's pretty cool.
They're good guys over there. Thanks for letting us break it down. And as somebody who's interested in it, and have made the gear excuses and things like that, and I always need one more. It's very intriguing, and to just go and check it out. I know I've got access to a lot of that stuff here in Las Vegas. So thanks for bearing with us for almost an hour and a half to ask the nuts and bolts. But we've got
all kinds of time.
Yeah, we've got some listener questions. If you're cool with jumping in there, Reed, if you didn't have anything else, Mike, if you didn't have anything else.
No, I'm good.
No, I just like to tell you, I found Dave by accident when you asked a good question about where can you find information about 3-gun. Well, I never really shot 3-gun before. We, just because my job, we did a lot of tactical shooting and tactical, right? And
man, you guys are dropping the bombs that I got to take out.
Yeah,
we're not allowed to cuss. You should have said that beforehand.
We're George Carlin fans here, JD. But in 2014, I went to that first NRA World Shoot, and I was in the 20s, 30s for 189 shooters there. But the 3-gun stage ate my lunch. I was like 118th, and I said, I've got to learn how this sport works. And I couldn't find anything. And before I left for SHOT Show in 2015, I just happened to Google 3-gun, and Dave's show came up, and I think you had just started then. And I downloaded. He only had like 5 or 6 podcasts. Greg Jordan, Keith Garcia, and I listened to those all the way to Vegas and just got enthralled. And I said, "Wow, I have learned more in this like 3-hour drive than I have from all the hours I spent trying to research this stuff on the internet."
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I built this rifle right here based on a conversation that I had with Craig Outson on the podcast. And
from my cold dead hands.
Yeah. You can actually, listen to it now as well and find out why, I prefer an 18-inch barrel with a rifle length gas, and why a low mass system, and why the trigger that I shoot and everything. And it's all based on that knowledge transfer. And Mike, as you know, you can go to 100 matches and you pick up 100 different things, but now you have 100 matches of investment into it. Whereas with a podcast, and I've listened to podcasts since like 2005, and you can gain so much knowledge and shortcut your learning curve so much just by listening to other people's experiences and the mistakes that they've made.
What he said.
Yay podcast.
Yay pod. Dude,
yeah.
It's been quite the ride.
You don't want dead air on a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's why we have editors.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I was thinking about it because, this year, Mike knows and Reed knows, this year has been a big year of transformation for me. I've dropped 110 pounds.
Good for you, man.
Running every day, lifting weights, doing stuff. And I'm looking for that next kind of thing. And you know what? I think I could place last in a 3-gun match sometime in 2018. I mean, I think it'd be something I do. I mean, I might show up with a freaking duct tape holster and all that stuff, but man, it intrigues me. It scares the heck out of me, to be honest with you. It's kind of intimidating, all the stuff that we've gone through today. But I think I could do it. I could, dude. I'm a fool most of the time, so I could show up to a range and be a fool.
Yeah.
So.
Well, JD, you mentioned that you're in Vegas. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to SHOT Show the day after SHOT Show, Saturday after SHOT Show. There is a United Multi-Gun League, a UML, SHOT Show match that's at the Pro Gun Club right outside of Vegas, right?
Yeah.
So I'm shooting that match. You should come shoot it with me, and I'll be your personal guy.
Holy cow, that's a month away.
Yeah, buddy.
And I've got some revolver holsters I can give you.
Got movements, right?
Yes.
No, yeah, it's a month away, but now or never, man. And like I said, I'll be there. You can borrow all my gear if you want. I'll teach you everything you need to know and more.
Well, when are you coming down to Texas next?
March.
Dave's going to be our personal 3-gun teacher.
Yeah.
All right.
I will, man. Yeah, Texas 3-gun championship in March is my first Texas match, and I'll probably hit up Vortex Shooter Source 3-gun championship. And I think that one, I can't see my calendar from here, but that one is in Crescent, right at Triple C range that I was telling you about.
All right. Well, JD, why don't you walk us through these questions real quick?
All right. So first off, I got to ask, what happened to your coffee pot?
Well, okay. So my coffee pot died yesterday morning. Like you just you push the button and the blue light comes on, it flashes, but like no water drips out, right? So it's dead. And so yeah, I had to toss that in the trash can. But I guess that goes back a little bit. So this office I just moved into, like 2 offices down, and downstairs is a coffee shop called Hello Coffee. And I shouldn't have mentioned them because I'm going to say something bad, but their dark roast is terrible. And you can see right through it. Like when you're pouring it, you're like, okay, they got the little pumper thing. You're pouring it and you're like, well, this looks like tea. And when you taste it, you're like, this is not a dark roast. Like, just call it medium. I don't even know why we're trying here. And I like my coffee. I like a dark roast, and I drink a black. I don't do any, milk or sugar or anything. So I was complaining on the Facebooks, which is what we do in 2017. I was complaining about the coffee. And then the next day, they got a Keurig in the central kitchen place here, and their dark roast is the exact same thing. Like you can see through it. Like, if I can see through the coffee, it's not dark roast. So then the next day, so that was 2 days. Then the next day, coffee maker dies. It's been a tragic week for the Three Gun Show's alertness and productivity.
Dude, I'm telling you, Raven's Brew, Dead Man's Roast, that stuff. I've been a radio. I started doing graveyard way back when. And so, like, dark roast coffee, like, thick as sludge. You chew the last couple of sips of it. Dark roast, of course, Death Wish coffee. There's several of them. Man, if it's like, I get complaints here at the station because they're like, man, his coffee's too strong. We just want Folgers, and so I have to get in before everybody. Brew. I brew a pot. I put them in these. Like I have all of it, and then there's just enough for another cup of coffee. So I pound that real quick, and then I drink like 70 ounces of coffee within an hour and a half of getting here.
Yeah, buddy.
Now you guys go on about your coffee fix. There's nothing like Nom coffee out of a Marine Corps chow hall.
Yeah, I had a coworker one time when I worked at a machine shop, and he would take coffee grounds and put them between his lip and gum like it was chew. And I haven't got to that point yet, but man, we're getting pretty close over here.
Man, I may be there tomorrow. That's genius.
Isn't it? He said he learned it in prison, so I don't know.
All right, let's get to the Trey wrote in and said, when Dave switched to the shorter barrel, did he switch his long-range ammo to a lighter grain, heavier grain, or did he stay with the same grain?
That's a good question. So last year I shot this thing, and this is an 18-inch rifle. It has a Seekins barrel in it. Super accurate. It really, really liked 55 grain Hornady VMAX, and the reason I found that out is Cabela's had it on sale one time, and I bought some. I was like, "Holy crap! These things are like laser beams." And then I found out that 55 grain, no matter if they're shooting 32, 50 feet per second, like those claim on the box, they don't really indicate targets very well. And we shoot these like flasher targets where you've got your strike plate like this and a flag on the back. And so when you shoot it, the flag comes up. And if you're listening, sorry, you should watch the YouTube. But and it doesn't really indicate very well with 55 grain once you get past like 400 yards, right? So you have to have someone good on glass, and then there's not really like a challenge to a long range hit call. So I found myself not getting several hits that were allotted to me once I was shooting 55 grain. So I was like, all right, well, in the off season, which was the winter last year, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go with something bigger. So I kind of messed around with some Gorilla ammo, and they had a good 77 grain load. And then I got hooked up with Armalite, and one of their parent company, SAC, has one of their sister companies here, I guess, is Nexus Ammunition, and it's a 77 grain match round, and it's actually designed around the two Armalite 3-gun rifles, the 18-inch and the 13.5-inch. So it was kind of natural once I picked up the 13.5-inch Armalite to go with the Nexus ammo. I did do some testing between these two rifles, the 13.5 and the 18-inch, and I found I lost like 220 feet per second at muzzle velocity at the chrono, 8 feet out in front of you or whatever. So for 2018, I'm probably going to switch to an 18-inch rifle because I'm going to be shooting a lot of big open terrain matches, and not so many bay matches. So long answer there. Yeah, I did switch ammo. It's 77 grain, and I still use 55 grain, just blaster stuff, PMC, herders, whatever you can get for targets that are like 200 yards and in.
And he had a second part. Does he try to get his long range ammo or hoser ammo to have the same point of aim?
I probably should, but I don't.
That's actually a hard.
Very hard.
That's a hard row to hoe. You'd really have to be hand loading to do that.
And I know some guys that do that. I don't hand load, so I don't. The thing that I do is I zero for my long range, right? Because you want to be on for long range, and then you can have some level of variability out to 200 yards with your blaster ammo, right? But I do zero that, not zero, but I do pattern that. I don't know. I guess put that on paper. Once I get my 77 grain, my long range 0, I will then switch to my blaster ammo, whatever big pile of stuff I have at the time, and see where that prints on paper out to 200 yards. And then I just know from there. And generally, it's close enough to where you can do like a dead hold.
All right. Next up, Tyler. He's got several.
Why don't you pare it down, JD?
We'll get favorite optics that you use for potentially unknown stages in distance shots, and then we'll go to load techniques, some that can improve your time.
Okay. So I have this Vortex Ranger 1500 rangefinder, and I use this on all my walkthroughs. And you can see the target, and you can laze the target with the rangefinder, so you know the distance. So you generally don't have any unknown distances unless you screwed up, right? So you want to remove unknown distances from your game. So if you don't know what a distance is, borrow a rangefinder. That's kind of the short answer there. What was the second part of that question?
The second part.
Load techniques.
Right?
Load techniques.
Yeah. So by that, does he mean like loading ammo?
No, loading your pistol, loading your shotgun, loading your...
Oh, for shotgun, yeah. There's what they call the quad load, right? So this is another thing that you're going to wish you were watching the YouTube, but you grab 2 stacks of shells like that, and this is how they sit in your hand. And then you basically turn your shotgun over and then pet them across the loading port, and you go 2 in, 2 more in. Just swoop, swoop. And that puts 4 shotgun shells in your shotgun really fast. The reason I have a 12-round tube is that 12 divided by 4 is 3, and I can do that math in my head pretty easily. So I know that 3 grabs of the belt, and I have a full shotgun. As far as pistol, magwell, and then stuff it in there.
Up next, we've got Mike asking for a flat trigger or a curved trigger.
So I've been playing around with this quite a bit. So this rifle right here has a Timney 2-stage. It's a flatty, and I really enjoy the flat triggers. I've been shooting an AR Gold that's curved, and it proved to me that I like the flat triggers better. So I'm kind of transitioning all my guns to flat triggers. I've got another Timney flatty I'm going to be messing with, and then a Hyperfire flat trigger. So for me, flat triggers. It is personal preference, but I found my personal preference is flat.
Weston writes in, I think we covered a little bit of this, but just a quick synopsis. Good, expensive starter gear, mag holders, shell caddies, etc.
Yeah, so inexpensive and shell carriers don't really go together. So unfortunately, shell carriers are super expensive. I did pick up, what I would recommend is getting like a loading vest. And I've got this one right here from Invictus Practical. They call this a deterk vest. I would imagine it's because it was designed by Dean Deterk. But it has 5 sets of quad loads on there. So 20 rounds in this one vest, and you're buying one thing. It looks kind of dumb sitting on your chest. You look like a monkey with an apron on. But it's the best bang for the buck that you can do. And then other than that, to keep it inexpensive, I would recommend borrowing gear until you have some spare cash or a birthday or something like that. As far as mag.
That being said, what's the connector point that you identified that is very common? ELS or?
Oh yeah. Safariland ELS.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the way to go. Full show Safariland ELS, and I found that nearly all of my friends shoot Safariland ELS. So it's if I need to borrow like some gear or something, it's easy to do. That's why I went with ELS initially, because all the dudes in my local circle had ELS. And so I figured if I ever need to borrow something, because at that time I didn't have everything, then I could do that. And I keep pushing on the podcast. So once we all get on ELS, we don't ever have to worry about But as far as mag pouches, a couple of years ago I got some LEG Tactical mag pouches, and I really love them. Their holster's great. I like something with active retention for some of the bigger matches that we do, mostly because I took a really awesome fall and did a complete heels over head and lost my pistol. So active retention is clutch on that, and I'm working with LAG to create something pretty great for 3-gun on that. And I generally only have one extra rifle mag pouch. Sometimes I'll stuff one in my pocket if I'm feeling unsure, but I have up to 4 pistol mag pouches for my belt, and I generally only run 2.
Next up, Blake, benefits of an LPVO versus a red dot. And following up with LPVO's first focal plane or second focal plane, and why?
So I had to look up LPVO, and that's low power variable optic, I just learned. So that depends on what division you are in. If you shoot a red dot versus a scope, I prefer a scope. It is definitely the biggest division. The scope that I prefer is the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2. It's a 1-to-6 power scope. I use a mill reticle just because any gun I pick up that has a mill reticle, all the hash marks mean the same thing, right? So that's what I like to do. This one has like a center dot that's really good. And you want it in a non-quick detach mount. I like the worn mounts. This is a worn mount right here. Actually, both these are. And they're super stable, and as long as you torque them correctly and everything, they never ever move, and you never have to worry about anything quick detaching when you don't want to. Or if you want to shoot limited division and you want to shoot like a 1X, like a red dot, there's plenty of red dot options out there, and you can put any one of them on there and have a great time at your local matches. If you're going to be shooting several hundred yards, I would recommend Vortex Spitfire AR. The reason is that it has an etched reticle, and you can illuminate it, and so it has red and green capabilities, and you can work it like a red dot, and it's super fast on close-up targets and everything. But that etched reticle is very fine for long-distance targets, and it's always there. So even if your battery dies, the black etching, just like in your normal scope, works just fine. And
finally, Austin said preference of single versus 2-stage trigger in competition. We've covered affordable optics and the practicality of offset sights and a 45-degree angle red dot mount.
So let's start with the red dot mount. So 45-degree offset sights, red dot, that's going to put you in an open division. If you want to shoot in open division, that's cool because it's really fast. It's really cool looking when you turn your gun sideways and you got that little red dot, and then the brass is flinging over your head, and it just makes for some great photos and makes you feel really cool. But yeah, I mean, that's what you would do is you'd have like, a little, I don't know, Vortex Razor red dot or the Viper red dot or whatever, or Venom. I don't know. I don't shoot open. So those are definitely options out there. And that 45-degree mount is super fast. And, you generally sight it in for like 20 yards or something like that. So then anything past that, you just move to your primary optic. I guess while we're on optics, I should mention that the throw lever is really important when you're shooting like a scoped rifle, because instead of, and again, you should watch the YouTube, instead of just using the dial with your fingers, now you've got a little latch that you can just flick and move the power over really quick. So that's the hotness there.
For Reed to explain this, it's the difference of, remember the radios we had in our cars in high school? It's the difference between turning the knob and hitting the button so the thing goes over real quick.
I remember that.
Yeah.
The first part of that question was triggers, right?
Yeah.
2-stage?
Single versus 2.
Me personally, single stage. This rifle here has this flat Timney 2-stage trigger, and I dry fired this thing in one of those little testers that Timney had when I was hanging out with Tommy Thacker for a couple of weeks, and I would just thunk. I'm like, God, this is the greatest trigger I've ever tried. I love it. And then when I got it in the gun and went to a match and pulled up on a close target and went to double tap and had like massive trigger. It's great for long range. It sucks for short range. And so I've since gone back to single stages, and I'll be shooting like this flat, Timney, or maybe even this Hyperfire. I have to do some testing, but yeah. So flat trigger, single stage for me. The Armalite rifles come with a single stage Timney, so if you have one of those, you're ready to rock out of the box.
Man, that wraps it up on listener questions.
Oh yeah.
Reed, Michael, any final thoughts?
Not that I can think of. I think you've pretty much covered everything for the intent of the podcast there.
Oh yeah.
But it's amazing with the characters that Dave gets on his show. There's a couple of just classic episodes. It's like Lucy and the Chocolate Factory. I just keep going back and listening to them time and time again.
That's awesome. Yeah, and there's great stuff that comes out of every single podcast too. There's if you listen to each one of them, you're going to come away with like one gem. Recently I had a guy named Jake Latola on he's a engineer for 3M. And his mind thinks in a completely different fashion than mine does. And he gave a talk on like a math comparison that he did on shooting pistol versus shotgun on a particular stage of Fort Benning multi-gun. And, it was pretty interesting. Like, I wouldn't have thought of that. I couldn't do it on my own unless you gave me like a calculator and a week and a half to figure it out. But he was able to do it just on the drive back from the range. And it's cool to get those unique perspectives and speak to people like outside of your ordinary circle and find out like what everyone else is thinking about the game.
Reed?
I think that's it. JD, why don't you read us out and we'll call it a show.
All right. So this is going to air right before SHOT Show, so we will already have released the new website. It's www.ar-15podcast.com. That's ar-15podcast.com. That is where you will find everything about us now. We'll have a Brownell's affiliate link up there, how you can support the show, how you can contact the show about us, to be able to subscribe on iTunes. So check it out, ar-15podcast.com. And we're going to be doing some fun stuff with that in the future. I've been working on that over the last couple of months and finally got it up off the ground. So we're excited about that. Also, if you have any comments, questions, problems, complaints, want to talk about your love for 357 SIG, Iron Sights, whiskey, or anything like that, ar15.podcast@gmail.com. That's ar15.podcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe and listen to the AR-15 podcast for free on iTunes. Your subscription makes a big difference in our weekly numbers that we share with those that we try to entice to get on the show. Some of them are tough cookies to crack, trying to explain new media. So when we're able to show them the numbers, man, I'm sure, Dave, you have the same kind of struggle sometimes with that. They tend to come on. Absolutely. So leave a review. Also check out the 3-Gun Show on iTunes. If you are a listener to the AR-15 podcast, please go over there and subscribe to them. Give them a listen. Share your pics with us on Instagram at AR-15 podcast. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/AR-15 podcast. You can find all the links you need for your Brownells affiliates, parts, needs at AR-15podcast.com. And with that, I think this episode is in the books.
All right. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you, Dave. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a ton of fun, guys.
All right. Well, everybody else, we'll see you in a week or so. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Great. Hey, good to see you again, Dave.
Good to see you too, Mike.
Bye there.
Once again, RTT Firearms is teaming up with the AR-15 podcast to support the show. They are offering a discount to AR-15 podcast listeners, 10% on any new rifle and 20% off any Cerakote work that you want done on your favorite AR. If you're looking to build your dream rifle in 2018, an AR-9 or a 45 pistol caliber carbine, 300 Blackout, 5.56, 308, or 6.5 Creedmoor, whatever you can dream up, they can make happen. They're offering a 10% discount to AR-15 podcast listeners for new rifles and also 20% off any Cerakote work. They're also running a Glock frame deal right now for your slide to get Cerakote work done, $99 plus shipping, and they will take care of that too. So whether you want to build your dream rifle, do some Cerakote work on your favorite AR-15, RTT Firearms can help you out. Once again, they're offering listeners a 10% discount on all new rifles, 20% off all Cerakote work. You can reach them at 928-230-1729. That's 928-230-1729, or their website, rttfirearms.com.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.